Hi guys, section 6.6 is about linear inequality. Linear inequalities is going to feel a lot like solving a linear equation. It's just going to have one rule that's a little different, and you'll have to do some graphing towards the end. There's a few symbols that you need to get comfortable with. The first symbol you need to get comfortable with is the less than symbol. That means the number on the left, A, will always be less than the number on the right, B. You can also have the less than or equal to symbol. A is smaller than B, or A is allowed to equal B. The greater than symbol, and then the greater than or equal to symbol. If you have a hard time keeping those straight, you may want to jot them down and put them in your notebook so that you don't forget them. An inequality is going to consist of two or more expressions that are joined by an inequality sign. So an example you could see would be something like 3 is less than 5, or x is less than 2, or 3x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 5. Any of those are examples of inequalities. Inequalities can be solved just like solving equations with one special rule that we'll talk about next. Once you're done solving, you want to represent your solution set. So let's say that we've isolated our x and we have the solution set that x is less than 2. When you go to draw this, whenever the inequality sign does not have a line underneath, you want to use an open circle on your number line. And then you want to always read your inequality from the variable. So x is smaller than the 2. So you want to shade anything that is smaller than the number 2. If they change the symbol on you and you have that x is less than or equal to 2, the only thing that's going to change on that graph is the circle type. Whenever they use a line underneath the inequality, you need to use a solid circle on your number line. Because they've still used the less than symbol, you would still shade to the left side of the number line. The blue shading and the blue dot represent all of the solutions of the inequality, all the numbers that are less than 2. When you're solving an inequality, you're going to use all the properties we did before, your addition property, your subtraction, your multiplication, your division property. The only rule that's special is if you multiply or divide by a negative number. If you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to reverse the direction of the inequality symbol. Let me show you what that's going to look like on the next example. So let's say we were trying to solve the inequality negative 5x is less than 20. We know that we want to get the x alone, and the x is being multiplied by negative 5. We know that the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we are going to divide both sides by a negative 5. 20 divided by negative 5 is negative 4. Because we divided by a negative, this symbol is going to change and not be a less than anymore. It is now going to be a greater than. That's the only time the symbol is going to change is if you multiply or divide by a negative number. You're still going to go to your number line. You're still going to plot negative 4 on your number line. Since there is no line underneath our inequality sign, we're going to use an open circle. And since it is now a greater than symbol, we are going to shade all the numbers to the right of negative 4. Okay, here's a two-step inequality. Solve 2x plus 5 is greater than 15. So we want to get our x alone, so we're first going to subtract 5 from both sides. So 2x is greater than 10. And then we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 2. So x is greater than 5. Notice we did not flip our inequality sign because we were dividing by a positive number. You only flip the inequality sign if you multiply or divide by a negative number. And then before you can say you're done, you have to graph it on a number line. We are going to plot our number 5. We're going to use an open circle because there's no line underneath the inequality sign, and it's a greater than symbol, so we are again going to shade to the right. So our solution is any number that's larger than 5. So that could be 5.01, 5.001, it could be a million, any number bigger than 5. Okay, sometimes they're going to ask you to solve a compound inequality. In this textbook, our compound inequalities are going to be written with x wedged between two numbers. Okay, this is going to be read two ways. First, x has to be larger than the a, and x has to be smaller than the b. You can separate them if you want in this fashion, but you don't have to. You can solve them all in one step if you want. So for example, if I just gave you the inequality, -3 is less than x is less than or equal to 2, and I would like you to graph the solution set, all I'm looking for you to do is to shade the numbers between the -3 and the 2. So if this is 0 in the middle, -3 is going to be on the left-hand side, +2 is going to be on the right-hand side. -3 is going to get a open circle, and +2 is going to get a solid circle. And then you are going to shade the region between the two numbers. So any number between -3 and 2, 2 included, will be a solution to the number set. Okay, let's say I gave you the inequality -4 is less than x plus 3 divided by 2 is less than or equal to 5. Your goal is to get the x in the middle alone. For me, the first thing I would like to do is get rid of the fractions. I'm not a big fan of fractions. So the way you can get rid of the fractions is you can divide you can multiply each section of the inequality by 2. So I'm going to multiply the left-hand side by 2. I'm going to multiply the middle by 2, and the right-hand side by 2. That's going to cancel the fraction that's in the middle, which is going to leave me with x plus 3 in the middle. It's going to leave me a 10 on the right-hand side and a -8 on the left-hand side. Now your x is still not alone because your x has a +3, so you need to undo the +3. You are allowed to subtract the 3 as long as you do it to all 3 sections of the compound inequality. So you'll do a -8 minus 3, and you'll do a 10 minus 3. So this says that your answer is any number that is greater than -11 and smaller than or equal to 7. So if you were going to graph that on the number line, you would have your -11 on the left. It would get an open circle because the symbol does not have a line underneath. You would put your 7 on the right. It would get a solid circle because its inequality does have a line underneath. And you would shade between them. Sometimes story problems are going to use inequalities. So here's an example of one situation. A student must have an average on 5 tests that is greater than or equal to 80, but less than 90% to receive a final grade of B. Devin's grades on the first 4 tests were 98, 76, 86, and 92. What range of scores on the 5th test will give him a B in the course? Okay, the first thing I want you to think about is how you go about averaging something. Typically, when you average something, you add them all together and you divide by the number of tests that there were. So we know that so far we have 4 test scores. We have a 98, we have a 76, we have an 86, and we have a 92. We are going to take an additional test, and we have no idea what that score is going to be. So that's going to be our variable x. There are 5 tests total, so to average it, we're going to divide by 5. Now, let's read carefully in the problem. It says that he needs to be greater than or equal to 80 and less than 90. Okay, the less than 90 is going to go on the right-hand side because it's larger. So we need our x to be alone in the middle, and we need the middle item to be bigger than 80. So make sure your alligator is eating the middle item. It is also okay if we are equal to 80. Okay, so if we land in that range, equal to 80 and larger, as long as we're smaller than 90, we're going to get a B for the course. Okay, so if we go to simplify this, the first thing I would recommend that you do is you add up all these test scores that he has so far in the class. If you add them all up, he so far has 352 points. Okay. Next, if you're like me, you probably don't like the fraction. So I would opt to get rid of the fraction. And the way I would do that is by multiplying everything by 5. And remember, when you multiply, you need to multiply all 3 sections. So I need to multiply the 80 by 5, the middle by 5, and the 90 by 5. And that'll cancel the fraction that's in the middle. So 352 plus x is going to be greater than or equal to 400. and less than 450. Okay, next you need to get your x alone, and so we're going to have to get rid of that 352. And because the 352 is positive, I'm going to get rid of it with subtraction. That is valid as long as you do it to all three sections of the compound inequality. That's going to isolate my x in the middle, and x is going to be trapped between 48 and 98. So if Devin scores a 48 or higher all the way up to a 98, he's going to be in the B category. So the only way for him to get an A is he's going to have to get a 98 or higher on the exam in order to get an A. Okay guys, give the problems a try and let me know if you need help.